tonight. Indiana at Notre Dame. Greg McElroy will be on the call. He is in Makawasha?
Yeah, he's, thereabouts. I'm not sure I've pronounced it right yet. It's officially Mishawaka.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I've said it without intentionally thinking my way through it.
Okay.
But current landscape, Mishawaka, 1/2 inch of snow on the ground. Snow expected to continue through about 10 o'clock local time. And it's unlikely that it gets way above freezing today. So there is a possibility that snow is on the ground throughout the course of today and throughout tonight's activities. So
well, what's cool is we're going to at least see it like over there on the sidelines and whatnot. Like that's, a lot of the leftovers and everything. That's always, and it's always cool. Like I remember as a kid watching games in Buffalo, like when it wasn't snowing. Cause I think we got mostly like AFC East games here on the CBS channel. Yeah. So New England, Buffalo, New York, and you'd see all the snow over to the side. That was even like for us as kids, still kind of cool. Like, look, there's snow on the sideline.
It snows places.
It gives you a different effect of like where the game is, what's going on.
Reminded me of the Missouri game, their last one. Like there wasn't much on the field, but they pushed it all off to the side. I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool.
It happens every now and then.
Knowing this place though, and knowing the sheer amount of money that this place has, it wouldn't shock me if the field was heated. Like it really wouldn't. Like it is. Dude, I'm not going to lie. Pretty blown away by Notre Dame. Came here as a recruit, 20 years ago or whatever, and just didn't have an appreciation for it back then. You know what I mean? Like the things that were important to me as a 17 or 16-year-old, very different from what's important to me now. And we went to the grotto last night, lit a candle at the grotto, walked around the basilica, just walked around campus a little bit. We had some time to kill after practice, and they weren't ready to pick us up yet because the whole stadium needs, like the ABC crew's never been here, so there's quite a bit of things that they had to do at the trucks yesterday. But anyways, it's just a really special place. I'll send you some pictures, dude. Highly recommend at some point. I don't know when this point will come, but highly recommend like when Judge and Locke get of age, come up here for a football camp or something. You know what I mean? Like come up here for like a 2-day football camp. And you'll understand what I'm talking. It's just a really special place. It's a really neat spot. So really glad to have this opportunity. I look forward to, hopefully seeing a great game tonight.
And I wonder if that's something that, as we've seen this gigantic shift in college football here recently, and not even so much the last 2-3 years, which has been tectonic, but just going back to how it's changed before, I wonder if that's worked against Notre Dame for a while. Just how much they rely on tradition, history, and some of the things that you're describing right now.
Yeah.
Maybe don't really appeal to the 17-year-old and the 18-year-old. But folks like us, and maybe even a little bit younger than us, that had that appreciation for what college football is like. I can tell you this in recruiting. My dad thought it was really cool that I got recruited. Like he was excited about it. He was pumped about it. He wanted. Right. We always talked about it. He wanted to hear about it. It's just he lit up when he heard that I got a letter from so and so or so and so coach called me. I think I got like 2 letters from Notre Dame. They actually signed an offensive lineman from Alabama the year I was coming out, Matt Brennan, out of Mobile. And it was pretty cool because my cousin went to St. Mary's. She's the same age as I am, and like randomly texted me one night, or she actually didn't text. How did you get in touch with each other back then? I don't know. Because I barely had email something.
No, it was instant message.
Maybe it was the next time I saw her at Christmas. She's like, yeah, I met this guy, Matt Brennan, that plays football. He knows you. I was like, wow, okay, random. Like, guy from different town in Alabama that I had met like on 2 or 3 recruiting trips just meets my cousin at St. Mary's. Okay. Anyway, when I got a letter from Notre Dame, it was a totally different reaction from him. And he grew up in Pittsburgh. So like he grew up watching the Pitt Panthers and, Dan Marino and those guys. Like that was, but he had a very deep appreciation for college football. And like it just seeing his reaction, hearing his reaction. I think he actually has it framed in his house. Like doesn't have the Auburn recruiting letter framed. Actually went and played. But it just kind of shows you like historically it means something very different to a lot of people. And I wonder, Greg, if some of the reason it's taken them to maybe, I don't want to say catch up because they've been in the playoff. I mean, they've had good runs, but to maybe consistently be where some other programs are, where they are level with or ahead of historically, if that's kind of worked against them, is that it's that history and tradition heavy lean that maybe a lot of kids today are just kind of like, meh, doesn't really move the meter for me very much.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about the things that were important to me. Like, what are we doing after the game? What are we doing? How important is football to you? Like,
Mass didn't do it for you back then? It wasn't like we're going to head to Mass.
No, I mean, it wasn't at the top of my list as a 16-year-old. Not Catholic either. So like, there wasn't really that appeal, I grew up and I don't know. I just wish, like, looking back, I wouldn't change a thing, but I wish I could have appreciated it more 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's just a neat place. It's a really cool place, cool people. Obviously national appeal. A lot of the people I met yesterday, very few went to Notre Dame, and very few graduated from Notre Dame. But have an interest in the Irish, whether it be their Catholic background or their dad went there, or they like it because they were great and they had gold helmets and they've been watching them their whole life. And I mean, whatever it may be, it's just a cool place. And like, if you're a history and a tradition buff, like I went to Alabama. Like, to me, the history of college football is of significant importance. And I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Notre Dame, always. But he never really had an appreciation for it until you see it with your own two eyes. And now, having been here, and I mean, it came years and years and years ago, but it just was different then. I don't know. I just didn't care. It just wasn't important to me. So it's cool though. And I think it's something too, as walls start to break down and there are some home and homes. And if you're listening to this show and your team is going to be playing in South Bend at some point, I know Georgia fans got to experience this 7 or 8 years ago. I'm sure they'd probably echo the sentiment. I cannot recommend coming to this environment enough. I think you will absolutely appreciate it, and you'll understand the pilgrimage that people make every single weekend, from Chicago and from Miami and from Los Angeles and from Dallas and from all over the country, to come to South Bend and to take it all in. It's just a really, really cool place, and I think you'll enjoy it. I really do. If you're a fan of college football, if you appreciate history, if you appreciate beautiful architecture, and just a real feeling of something special, Notre Dame's a neat place, and a place that I'd highly recommend. So really cool to have this opportunity. And like I said, dude, when judging those guys, maybe they'll get recruited. That'd be incredible. But if not, like, first opportunity Vince gets to go to camp, like, I'm going to have him come up here. He's going to love it. It's going to be awesome, and we'll get to come back and visit. It'll be neat.
Yeah, it's thankfully I think the 7-year-old's got the wife's brains academically, so we'll be good there. 4-year-old still kind of wait and see, but I'm not really sure. They're going to need that if they're going to even get a shot to go there, because I think after I got the first letter and they looked at the transcripts, they kind of moved on.
That's why you framed it, because it was just the one.
Thanks for playing.
Just the one letter.
Nice knowing you.
Yes.
There are not enough junior colleges on earth for you to be able to get. Maybe now there would be, where I could
Sir, you're missing a digit on your
eligibility.
SAT. This is 3 digits. We need 4. Where is the fourth digit?
Thought I got extra credit. Yeah, it's wouldn't have been looking good for me to be able to get into Notre Dame. But as you stated, the history and tradition is there. These two campuses about 200 miles apart. First college football playoff game between same state opponents. 30th time that they've met. Notre Dame 23-5-1 all time against Indiana. The last meeting 1991. Prior to that meeting, it was 1958. Indiana's lost 20 of their last 21, but obviously a long time ago, so it doesn't really feel like it means that much. 1990, the last time, as you mentioned, the ESPN ABC trucks there around campus, the last time that a Notre Dame home game was not broadcast on NBC. And Indiana's 1-71 all time against AP top 5 opponents. Full disclosure, Greg, your conversation on this show and off air throughout the course of this week has shifted my opinion on this game. It forced me to go back and do a little bit more due diligence on these two teams. And I had watched them. I had paid attention to them. I did a little bit of a dive early this week. And as I've gone further this week, I have opened the door much wider for an Indiana win in this game. And I think that There are folks that believe the weather will just play into Notre Dame's hands because they want to be ground and pound and they probably want to slow this game down a little bit. But I actually think specifically if the wind is an issue, I don't think it affects Indiana as much as people believe because the screen game is diverse. The quick game is there. I think there are other ways for them to do some things through the air if Notre Dame wants to try to stack the box that aren't necessarily going to be throws that the wind's going to affect all that much. And I think they can live there to an extent. So I'm much more open to an Indiana win. We'll give our official picks, or Greg won't, but John and I will later in the show. There are a lot more ways I think they're going to be complicated for Notre Dame than a lot of people are discussing.
I think Indiana's really good. Now, I think a lot of people that have said, well, who have they played? The two top defenses that they've played, they gave them some fits, and I think that's warranted. I think that's absolutely 100% warranted for the pushback. I think their quarterback's probably the best in the field as far as accuracy. He's 6'5". He's got all the things that you would want. Like I think you look at Dylan Gabriel and you think, okay, he's the most efficient quarterback remaining. I'm telling you what, if there's a gap between him and Curtis Rourke, it's not big. It's very, very close. Really impressed with him. I think they have good personnel at wide receiver. And I think you look at the USC game against Notre Dame, the receivers for the Trojans gave Notre Dame a lot of fits. And I think this will be the best group of wide receivers that they've seen outside of the Trojans. Now, I think the Trojans are more physically impressive. I think these guys at Indiana are tacticians. They are really, really, really well coached and do a great job of creating separation, and the passing attack is always on time. So it's a little different cover this week than it was against SC, where you just have big, fast guys that can beat you up. This one will require really good cover skills on the outside, and that could be a challenge. I don't think Indiana's going to have a ton of success running the football. I think it really comes down to can they protect? If they can't protect, they're going to have a hard time. If they can protect and they hold up, then they should be in good shape. But I think it's a really good matchup, to be honest with you. I could see it going both ways. I think it's really tight, and I have a ton of respect for both teams.
Are you concerned that 2 of 3's Notre Dame worst rushing defensive performances of the year have been their last 2 games?
Well,
I mean, they've allowed 10 opponents over 100 yards rushing. They've allowed 4 over 190 yards rushing. Is there a little bit of how much of that is on game control that they've been able to have the games go their way as much as they have because the rush defense doesn't just feel as dominant as some others that we talk about in college football?
Well, I think that the Notre Dame rush defense, you have to take it with a slight grain because they've been without their best defensive lineman for a month. And that is, I think, a hard thing to overcome. When you're without a game breaker up front, it really impacts you. You know, it doesn't mean they can't overcome it. They can. It just, I don't think it's going to be easy to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with Howard Cross back in the lineup, I have a little bit more respect for how Notre Dame will stack up front. But he's not like an overwhelmingly large guy. He's just plays vertical and has got some quickness, so he can create some negatives. I think the big problem for Notre Dame is the lack of a real pass rush. They're going to have to manufacture some things because they've lost their top 2 pass rushers on the edge earlier this year, and that is probably one thing that has kind of held them back. If they still had Boubacar Traore or Jordan Botelho, I might feel a little differently about them, but they don't. They don't have those guys, so that's a challenge. Their run defense isn't as bad. I just don't think they force as many negative plays as I thought they would come into the season. So they can get hit on a little bit more of an efficient crack, get down and down out.
I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just think there's a perception that it's overly dominant, and it's. I wonder if the game control leads into that just a little bit more maybe than some of the other things when you're talking about just what they've been able to do, how they've been able to do it. It's going to be a fun game either way. I mean, think about listening to the way that you're raving about the surroundings right now. I'm just imagining how you're going to feel when you walk out of that stadium tonight and we witness this game, win or lose. Specifically, if they win, I can only imagine what your thoughts are going to be on that environment. We're going to hear a little bit more from you on what some of the coaches had to say yesterday and just what you got as far as the vibe of the team heading into this matchup. Stanford Steve going to be with us on the other side. And then we got all day to talk college football because it is a massive college football weekend. Obviously, it gets going tonight. We've mentioned the game. Indiana, Notre Dame, ABC, 7 o'clock, the first ever playoff game in a 12-team college football playoff. That gets you going tonight. Tomorrow is a big day of college football. And honestly, not just because you have the 3 playoff games. Also, keep in mind today, a pretty big day of college football outside of the playoff game. You've got 11 a.m. Jacksonville State gets going in the Staff DNA Cure Bowl. They're taking on 10-3 Ohio. Jacksonville State trying to get to 10 wins on the season without Rich Rodriguez. We'll see how that one goes as he's moving on to West Virginia. And then 2:30 today, Tulane and Florida get going in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. DJ Lagway and company going to get going there. That should be a fun game. Obviously, Darian Mensah out for Tulane as he hit the transfer portal. But Sumrall is going to have his group ready to go. Billy Napier feels like he's been trending upward back half of the season. Then you'll get that playoff game. But tomorrow you have 2 FCS playoff games as well. So it's a big day of college football as you'll get South Dakota State at North Dakota State and then South Dakota at Montana State. Those are kind of sandwiched in between those 3 playoff games tomorrow. It's a huge football weekend. It's going to be fun. We're going to continue to try to break it down for you across the course of the show today. Going to be a lot to get to. Questions you have about it, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. You can text into the show any questions that you might have there, 205-834-9450. Talking points you want us to hit about any of these games, we can do that. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. As we go Max Ball Friday here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. My friends at Royal Automotive want to help you experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships in one location. Selection and savings unmatched. Royal, only place to find over 20 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. Right now, get up to $15,000 off select 2024 GMC Sierra models. Sign and drive with 0 down, 0 security deposit, 0 first month's payment, 0 due at signing on select Volkswagen, Atlas, Tiguan, and Taos models. Or sign and drive any new Volvo XC40, XC60, or XC90 model with 0 down, 0 due at signing, and 0 for your first payment. Go see my friends at Royal Automotive, Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. Remember, for every ride, there's Royal. Quickly, Greg, before we go to break, Auburn gets a commitment from Wake Forest wide receiver Horatio Fields. A little bit of a different type receiver. He'd be more along the lines of the Cam Coleman model, 6'3", 205 pounds, 39 catches, 463 yards, 4 touchdowns this year. Once again, going back and watching the Wake Forest offense, I just love it. I don't know how more people don't pay attention to it and watch it. It's just such a cool watch. But nonetheless, he's a guy that can make catches in traffic. Didn't get a ton of targets, actually, which I think may be a reason why he's probably people see how highly coveted he was and then see the numbers. You're like, hold on, like 39 catches. They didn't go to him a ton. They had a couple decent options on there, and then obviously how they run the football. And the quarterback play was beyond sporadic. But it's a good get for Auburn because he gives you another one of those bigger bodies down the field.
Yeah, I hadn't really watched a lot of them this year. I need to go back because there's 2 or 3 guys in the portal from Wake that I just felt like they kind of fell out of favor. I watched them early against Clemson. I watched them in the first half a couple other times. I feel like I've mostly just seen their defense, and I had a couple guys on defense that I didn't dislike either. So I'll let's keep an eye on it. But if he's got some length, he's got some production, and it's an offense too where we've seen guys leave that offense and go and have success other places. We've seen it a bunch actually because the scheme is a little bit dicey, but as far as how it translates to Auburn, the RPOs are not that dissimilar. So I think there's some benefits to going and trying to attract guys from Wake Forest, given their production in the past. I mean, the biggest one being Kenneth Walker a couple years ago at running back. But they've had receivers go. They've had a couple defensive front 7 guys go. They've had a safety or 2 go, and they've now had a couple receivers and the quarterback too, obviously, with Sam Hartman going to Notre Dame last year. So it's been an offense that translates to other places and almost always leads to increased productivity when the guys find a new home.
Did you have Miami this year?
Did not have Miami this year.
Have you watched much of their defense?
Oh, yeah.
Who the tackling?
Tackling, not great.
It might be the worst I've seen this year of any team. And I don't say that I don't feel like that's recency bias. But I mean, I've beginning to prepare for the Pop-Tarts Bowl and watching them against some of the teams either in the playoff or that I need to see for other things like these transfers. I mean, it's unbelievable to have the athleticism and overall ability they have and speed, and then just to dive at ankles the way they do. It's unbelievable. I mean, they should have had 15 more tackles for loss this year, and they just come and dive at guys' ankles, and next thing you know, it's an 8-yard gain. You're just like, wow. Sorry, total sidebar there, but I had been blown. We had our first production meeting about the game yesterday, and I was just and you and Bill Palladino.
Let's go down to Cole sideline with Miami. Well, Jordan, Tom, these guys stink at tackling.
More bad tackling.
They are terrible.
I don't know. It's a
and I want a Cole. Can I get a demonstration from you, maybe on like a tackling dummy on the sideline, where you body up as opposed to diving at the ankles? Maybe give us one rep where you dive at the ankles.
We had that
one
on
rep
the
where you body
Megacast
it
of
up.
the Fiesta Bowl, and I gave you guys a form tackle on that one, so maybe I'll have to get it again. We did discuss the Pop-Tarts Bowl trophy and putting it to use maybe before the game's actually over, since it's an actual toaster. We did discuss maybe this will make you happy. Consuming some Pop-Tarts during the game and things that can go on with that. I know you'll be thrilled for that one. So,
well, you're helping the sponsor there. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, when you ate the bloomin' onion, didn't bother me. Well, know why? Serving the sponsor.
Got it. All right.
Cheddar makes it better. You got to do what you got to do. But when you start going, I don't even remember what you ate in the corny dog or whatever.
That was Jordan. I don't feel like I had to go that direction on television.
Did you have pretzel?
Just low-hanging fruit. I did the donut burger on the sideline.
Oh, that's right, the donut burger. Yes. What sponsor was that serving?
I did my health.
Tums Gummy Bites?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Ozempic? Is it serving that one?
There wasn't a sponsor tied to that one other than just feeling good about yourself, which I did for about
feeling good in the moment.
30 seconds, yes. It went away quickly.
A donut burger does sound delicious. I just feel like it's a dangerous thing to eat. I can live with the things that are somewhat manageable. Donut burger feels like you're in a suit or in a nice outfit. Feels like it's just not going to go well.
Yeah, it was messy. Yeah. It was a challenge. By far, though, Bloomin' Onion was most challenging because, I mean, you know how it is in like Tampa. I mean, it can be like 60, and then all of a sudden the clouds go away, and it's 80. And I housed a couple giant bites of that Bloomin' Onion. It was hot, but it had also been sitting out. And like it was as soon as I ate it, it was almost like the Lord was saying, shouldn't have done that. And he moved the clouds. And it's like the temperature went up 15 degrees, the humidity went up 20%, and I was like, this is not good. Like I just started to sweat. I was like, oh boy. I've never had the Bloomin' Onion sweats before, but here they are. And we got another quarter of football to get through.
The other thing that blows me away when you eat, I've eaten many a meal with you. You eat normal-sized bites. You're a bigger guy. So you maybe slightly above average-sized bites. When you eat on television, it's like you are trying to eat the whole thing in one bite.
Well, you know how my hits go. It's usually about 4 seconds at a time. So you gotta hammer it. Get it done. It's the only way.
It's not your face or your body that adds 10 pounds when it's on television. It's Cole's fork.
That's it. Or hands.
It's the size of the bite.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not the size of the dog and the bite. It's the size of the bite and the dog. And the bite and the dog for Cole on television is pretty remarkable.
It's big. It's a lot. All right, so we'll get to Stanford Steve on the other side, get his thoughts on some of these lines, the totals in the college football playoff weekend 1 next on Mac and Cube in the morning.
Welcome back, McElroy Cubic in the morning, 8:27 a.m. here in the Eastern Time Zone, South Bend, Indiana. 7:27 back at home. Hope everybody's having a great start to their day. Half an inch of snow on the ground here in South Bend. Hopefully it holds so we can have some snowy weather on the field tonight, but we shall see. I tell you where it's not snowy. That's a Bill Smith Buick GMC. The deals are hot. I mean, it's December, but the deal's still hot. That's why you can go and get 5 figures off several vehicles right now at the end of the year savings event. You can go and get $10,000 off a Yukon. That's right, a Yukon. You can go get $13,500 off of a Sierra 1500. I mean, these are the deals that you won't find anywhere else. So go take the short drive up to Coleman, up I-65, exit 310, Highway 31. You'll be really glad you did. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers, because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take the short drive to Coleman and go check them out. Off I-65, exit 310, or you can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, we have some listeners asking you to post pictures from Notre Dame. I did see one account right now. Cooper Patenga just retweeted this, at Fighting Irish, 201,000 followers. I don't know exactly if that looks like just like the Notre Dame athletics page. And they just tweeted a picture of a snowman up in the corner of the stands in the end zone, field covered by snow. I think this is from late last night, or maybe it's early this morning. But as Greg was talking about, there is snow on the ground. Pretty decent layer of it in the stadium, too. So just could make for a really cool atmosphere tonight. I think we're all excited about it. Hey, when did they film RT War Eagle, that the 30 for 30 for ESPN?
Like 2011, summer of 2011, I think. So
it's been a little more than 10 years?
About, yeah.
Well, Greg, you've grown up a lot in 10 years, man. I want to give you credit. You've changed a lot. Because
That's what's up.
I don't even want to know if it was like a South Beach, Vegas, LA look that you had going on for that one. It was on last night after the bowl game and caught you a couple of times on that one. And it was just, man.
Well, in fairness, I did my interview for that thing in like LA. So it was LA.
You had the vibe.
Had to dress apart.
Yeah,
okay.
That was an extra button down on the shirt and like a little more hair gel. Because you're like, yeah, we're LA, we got to get it going.
A shell necklace.
I don't think I had hair gel in. I don't know for sure.
The video's been tweeted out from Mac and Cube, so we can go check it here and
possible.
See. It's just something going on up there. But yeah, I was just like, man, he's grown up a lot. Look at our little boy right there, and now he's all grown up like a real adult.
My! I forgot Greg had a sleazy real estate life.
I didn't go there. I did not say that.
Ooh.
That was not me. I guess I need to send this video to Greg so he knows what's out there on him, so he can see.
I ain't worried about it.
It was cool hearing you talk about. I mean, obviously not super cool because Auburn lost, but like I had forgot you giving some of the inside scoop on that final drive, and you thought Saban was going to kick the field goal, and then he's the one that called the bootleg. Just kind of how that all happened, how that all went down. It was kind of cool to hear you talking about it.
No, it was cool. It was no gel there. Slap.
No?
I'm gonna put gel in my hair.
Some chest meat though.
It looked like a little something.
Yeah, definitely a little low on the does feel like a little low on the
button?
On the button. I do look tan though. I got some action.
A little bit.
Tan, young.
Did you inspire the Richard Jefferson, Louis Riddick look?
Do they go low on the button?
They go a little uncomfortably low sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes it's a little bit about the shirt, I've noticed, though. Like, I'm not trying to stick up for him, but I do feel like sometimes the second button is a little too tight, so you have to undo it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's a little too much. Like, you got to find the right shirt. You know, the button spacing is imperative. But I don't know if I know the answer to what they got going. I'm sure they're custom.
There's probably a producer, though, too, that was there like, come on, loosen up a little bit here. We're in L.A. Let's go.
Yeah, you know who it was?
I do not.
Joe Tess.
I knew he was a part of that, but...
yeah, Joe the Tess.
Wow, okay. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, he's in there telling people what to do, or he wasn't directing it?
No, we're in there. He's in there asking the questions, and, you know, we're having the conversation.
Greg, that final drive.
Walk me through it. Yeah, that was pretty much it. That's the way it went.
The landscape of college football. Tell us how massive it was in your mind. Yeah. All right. So Stanford Steve going to join us on the Buyers Right Hotline in GMAC. He joins us each and every week thanks to our friends at Crane, not Craneworks. Sorry. Atlas Senior Living. We'll talk to him on the other side, though. Got to get to a break first, and then Stanford Steve will be with us. All right, 7:36, Friday, December 20th, Jocks 94.5. We have a lot to get to yet in college football. Stanford Steve going to join us as he is also on site and give us his thoughts on this game. First, I'll give you a little bit of information on our friends at Game Day Men's Health. You get over to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now, and they're going to be able to help you with all sorts of issues you may be dealing with. If it's lack of sleep, if it's low energy, maybe you feel on edge, could be the effects of low testosterone. Game Day Men's Health wants to help you today. Other programs they can help you with, weight loss, obviously. Other things in your life that might be giving you troubles. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, set up that free consultation, no charge. You get the free PSA test, free testosterone test, right out of the gate. Get your baseline health. And then obviously Game Day Men's Health is going to give you different ideas and different ways that they can help you. No stress on those. Not going to try to push you into them. Locker room environment, locker room feel, great people, and minimal upfront cost for the programs that they offer in-house. Book your free consultation today at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Tell them you heard about them right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Stanford Steve with us now from College Game Day, Sports Center with SVP. And Greg, he joins us each week thanks to our friends at Atlas Senior Living.
Yeah, Atlas Senior Living, the senior housing community, does an amazing job. Really appreciate what they've done all season long. The Atlas Senior Living Pick'em contest has been super successful. A bunch of people got a bunch of Amazon gift cards, and they got the $1,000 gift card at the very end. Go to atlasseniorliving.com to learn more. Next year, you ought to click on the football banner. It'll be absolutely awesome. And the Atlas Senior Living, senior housing community serving seniors across the South, all throughout the Southeast, you're taken care of, including Birmingham, at Monarch Grove and Greystone. So go and check them out, atlasseniorliving.com. Steve, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Nothing. I'm just going through our 4-hour rundown pregame. You better bring it in the O's segment. We got a booth hit with you and McDonough. I'm fired up. This place is going to be awesome. I don't know if you guys have been here, took visits or whatever, but I came to camp here before my senior year to check it out. They were still one of those schools that wanted me to play quarterback. And when you're 17, like, I don't know, like I walked around, you saw the grotto. It just felt everything was old. Like the dorms were just old. Like there was just a bed and a closet and a sink in your dorm room. Like, it was just weird. And then coming back here now and seeing their facilities upgraded and the stadium redone and, it being so much bigger, I think it's just awesome that the first playoff game is going to be here. Pumped that you and Sean get to call it. We're here for game day. Like, it's going to be as big. And, everybody look forward to this season. And I just feel like it's super fortunate that we're going to start this playoff thing here. In South Bend with all the history and everything. So I'm
the only thing that's
fired
been
up to get this going.
The only thing that's been strange though is I haven't seen you around our hotel, the Hyatt Place. Where are you guys staying? Out of curiosity.
We're bunkering down in downtown South Bend. You're probably out.
Yeah, I bet you are. Where's your what? You're in a nice hotel, aren't you?
Oh boy, here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
I know exactly where you're staying.
Game crew. Yeah, Courtyard. That's high end.
Oh, yeah, that's not what I've been told. I believe maybe you're staying somewhere other than your other cohorts, but I've been told that there were 5 really nice rooms that were that are right on campus, and those were for you guys.
The key word, Greg, 5. You said the key word, 5. There's a tier. There's tiers here. Come on now. We're a team, but there's tiers. Come on.
Steve, on this game specifically that Greg's going to be on tonight, you guys both there on location. We've gone back and forth on how we could see this thing playing out. Talking to Greg this week, he's kind of opened my ears to going back and watching this team a little bit more, Indiana that is. And I'm on the verge of picking Indiana to win today. And it's I just think they can give Notre Dame problems in a lot more areas than people are discussing.
Totally agree. Going back and through it and watching Notre Dame, I feel like this is the best defense Notre Dame has faced since week 1. When you look at the guys on each level, Fisher, has NFL future in my eyes. I think West and Kamara out front are difference makers. And then Pons is undersized, but man, I love the way he plays. Like, he has that undersized mentality at corner. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I think they can give Notre Dame fits, put them in, situations where they have to throw the ball and they don't want to because that's not what they want to do. They want to hand the ball off and get the run game going. My thing, Greg, you were in D.C. that first Sunday when it was allowed. I love the under in this game. I just feel like both defenses are better than what the offensive has faced. I think they have the advantage. You factor in the elements. Going back and looking at Notre Dame, 3 guys have thrown for over 200 yards, and it was a day in beautiful Los Angeles. It was a beautiful day here with Tyler Shuck in September, and then Pyron in the Dome. So I feel like with Notre Dame playing that man stuff, and I like Indiana's skill guys. I've said that all year. They're better than you would think, just because they have an Indiana helmet on. People, stereotype, but they got some wiggle. They got some juice. But I think both defenses dominate. I think 24 points wins the game.
It's hard to argue with that. I mean, I think both defenses are pretty good, but I think both offenses have a chance as well. It depends a little bit on the gusts tonight and some things like that. Saying that it could be somewhere in the vicinity of 20 miles an hour, I think was the last I saw. But either way, should be very interesting. Let's get to the others. SMU Penn State. I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around it. I think SMU can move the ball. I think SMU can score. I don't know if they can stop Penn State. I think the corners are a liability. I think they'll run it on the perimeter. They'll use quick passing attack, get those backs out in space. They're not going to try to force feed it between the tackles, but I do think if you can get those backs out in space and toss sweeps, quick throws, things like that, that's where they'll kill them. So I think a high-scoring game that I lean slightly towards taking the points, but I don't have a great feel for the side, but I do have a good feel for the over.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Penn State really found something. I've been asking for it all year. When you have receivers that don't separate and you have NFL running backs, you got to figure out a way to get them the ball. And they did it in every way, shape, and fashion against Oregon. And I thought they put Oregon on their heels a lot in that game and getting the ball to Allen and Singleton in space. Those guys are difference makers, and you got to feed those guys. I love Penn State in the first half. If you want to look at some wagering, I think you can get 4.5. But I think they jumped. So looking at what SMU looked like against Clemson, I do expect them to play a little more free, but that atmosphere is going to be a lot to ask for SMU to start fast. If SMU, I think they need a quick start more than anybody in these playoff games because of what they're up against and what we just talked about with Penn State's offense. And I just feel like they're not going to have that juice early on. So I like Penn State in the first half. I don't want to leave myself open to the back door, knowing that's more than a touchdown. And, knowing the way Rhett has made adjustments at halftime, they've been a good second-half team, SMU. So I look at Penn State. I agree with you. As long as Jennings stays on the field, SMU will score. But I just think Penn State scores more. I'm with you on that over.
All right, let's go to a couple of other Stanford Steve joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline, talking college football playoff. I think one that a lot of folks have interest in for different reasons in this part of the country will be tomorrow morning on TNT, 11 a.m., SMU at Penn State. Both teams 11-2. It feels like the matchup is just bad for SMU, and then the conditions make it worse for SMU, and not necessarily because they're somewhat of a warm weather team, but just because how much ball exchange do you want if it's snowing? How much do you want to try to rely on the quick game if you can't run the football, if there's wind blowing and the ball might be a little bit wet? I just think it's all beginning to add up to be just a bad situation, a bad matchup for SMU. Do you see it any different?
No, that's what I was just I think Penn State comes out fast. And looking at SMU, how they were kind of stunned by Clemson in the beginning, I think Penn State brings more to the table than what Clemson does. And I think the initial reaction to that is going to catch SMU off guard. So, yeah, I like Penn State in the first half, and I don't want to – SMU will get it going. Rhett's been awesome in the second half, but I don't want to leave myself open. I also look at Singleton and Allen. Their rush yards are both under 56, I think. I would go over on both those guys. I think they're going to get the ball a ton.
Don't hate that. What about Ohio State, Tennessee? It feels like everybody and their brother's on Tennessee. It feels like all the negativity in the world is on the side of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And then you look at the line, it just won't budge. It's at 7.5, which tells me all I need to know. Feels like Ohio State or nothing. And I think Ohio State might run them out of the gym. I think people are not focusing on the flaws of Tennessee. They're exclusively focusing on the flaws of Ohio State. So I think this thing could get sideways in favor of the Buckeyes. How do you see it?
I look at all the pressure on Tennessee's defense, guys. I think their offense is going to struggle. They haven't been great in the shot plays. I think it's below 50%, maybe even 48% below that. And they're going to have to hit those, but they haven't shown they could do it. And when you look at that matchup, Ohio State still plays pretty well up front. The idea of Tennessee's defense, like I look at Jeremiah Smith, going back and watching the tape, they threw the ball, as much. They just didn't have the ball in the second half against Michigan. That's to Michigan's credit. They knew how they could win, and they kept the ball away from. Will Howard has to be better. And I look at if how stubborn will Ohio State be trying to run the football. I thought they went a little bit too much with it in the Michigan game, knowing how they just got manhandled at the guard position by two really, really good defensive tackles. Now, Tennessee doesn't have guys of that caliber, but they play way more guys. So is that going to be an advantage for Tennessee? I think it is. So knowing that Tennessee's offense is going to struggle, I think there's a lot of pressure because I think, the corners, heard Billy Napier talking about Tennessee plays some sticky coverage on the back end. I think why he said that is that they're gettable as long as you can protect up front. And if there's anything Ohio State has had to do is work on pass protection to give Will Howard those clean windows. You have to get Ibuka and JJ the ball in space. So I was all on Tennessee early on, Greg, but now knowing the versatility that Ohio State's offense has, I think that's something that, Georgia doesn't have, or even Alabama. I think Ohio State has more versatility as long as they can shore it up front. So I was actually looking at the over because it keeps coming down, and that's the lowest total. I think on both sides, there's plenty of capability with skill guys. So that's the way I would go in that game.
I like the over there too on a couple of explosive plays. How many 300-yard games do you think Will Howard has this year, Steve?
I don't know. I know in the last 2 years he's 3-6 when he's had to throw the ball 30 times or more. I know that one.
It's one 300-yard game this year. So
how many for Nico?
Michigan State?
Well, I haven't heard people saying that Tennessee's got to throw the ball to win this game. And I keep hearing
I don't think
more
Tennessee's going to be able to run it, though. Why do we think Tennessee's going to be able to run it?
Is Ohio State going to run it?
I don't know I don't think either team's going to run it. That's why I like the under. I think it's going to be low scoring.
I think you'll get some.
I think it's going to
plays.
be tough sledding defensive battle, and it's going to be like 13-10.
I want to see how much Nico's in the run game. That's the factor that I'm trying to think about how if that's another option that Heupel has, and if it's successful, that changes a lot of things because that frees a lot of stuff up inside for Sampson.
I think they're going to add
what I'm
some
watching
of that
for Tennessee's offense.
I think you'll see some new stuff. I think they're going to add it. I think it'll be there because I think they're going to have it, and they know they're going to have it. Steve, great stuff as always, man. We always appreciate your time. Thanks for stopping by. Have fun. Enjoy it. I know it's going to be an awesome day.
We'll do. Greg, bring a pregame. You need it before the game. Just remember.
Thanks for letting me in your show, pal. I appreciate it.
Feels like there's some doubt there. I don't understand it, but oh well. All right, Steve. Appreciate it, man.
See you guys.
Stanford Steve brought to you by our friends at Atlas Senior Living. Joins us each and every week. Thanks to Atlas Senior Living. When we come back, a little bit more on that game, and we begin to roll into the rest of the college football playoff next. Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, 7:53, Friday, December 20th. Jocks 94.5. Watch live on YouTube. Search Jocks 945. Spent a lot of time discussing GMAC's game, and we'll get some picks on it a little bit later in the show, and a little bit more to break down later in the show as well. Some college football last night. Sam Houston State gets past Georgia Southern in the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. That means 10 wins for Sam Houston. Second year in FBS, 10-3 now. They had fewer first downs, fewer rushing yards, fewer total yards, and went 4 of 12 on third down. Yet they win the game.
Okay.
But when your quarterback, J.C. French, goes 20 of 33 for 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, and you also lose a fumble, that's going to be tough to overcome. And Georgia Southern couldn't. They finished 8-5. So a nice win there for Sam Houston State, Greg. A team that, unlike a lot of others, has made the jump fairly successfully to FBS, being able to get their first ever bowl win in their first try and get to 10 wins in just their second season in FBS.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, too, Casey Keeler now taking over at Temple. It'll be interesting. Phil Longo, now the head coach at Sam Houston State. It'll be interesting to see how things go for him. But that's a program. I mean, there's been a bunch of programs that have proven the ability to go from the FCS to the FBS and have no issues whatsoever. James Madison's one of those. Sam Houston State's one of those. We've seen it with Jack State. Jack State had success doing it. Obviously, App State didn't take them long to get it going. Western Kentucky took them a little while, but inevitably got things going a little bit. So I think it just goes to show you, if you are a program that has had success at the lower levels, you can have success at the higher levels if you have the right resources and you know how to win and you have the right culture. So I think you should feel pretty good about it.
All right, so that one took place last night, and you got bowl games coming up today outside of the playoff game tonight, and GMAC's going to be on the call for Indiana at Notre Dame. We asked a little bit about that vibe earlier. How did you feel coming out of the meetings with the Notre Dame staff?
Felt good. I mean, everyone's pretty loose. Went to practice yesterday. Really loose, if you really look at it. So I think they feel pretty good about their plan. I think they feel pretty good about what they have, and I think the extra time has probably given them some opportunities to heal up and rest up, which will be advantageous. But it's anybody's guess. I think they're also a little concerned about the long layoff that they've had as well. But the good news is Indiana's had the same thing. Neither team has played since the final weekend of November. So it's been a while, but I think both teams kind of anxious getting to this game and seeing how they match up.
There is definitely snow falling now, as Golick Jr. has shared a video, GMAC, and cars already lined up to get to campus. Anticipation just kind of building here about what this is going to look like tonight.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good, dude. It's rocking. People are fired up, no doubt about it.
All right, we got more to break down. We're going to move on from Indiana, Notre Dame, give you some transfer portal updates next hour, and take a look at tomorrow's college football playoff game. Does SMU have a chance in Happy Valley? Does Clemson have a chance in Austin? Doesn't sound like Greg thinks Tennessee has a chance in Columbus. We'll discuss all of those right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, so quickly, just want to get everybody's take here on something that might be happening. And that is, I took the picture from @FightingIris, Notre Dame's athletic department Twitter handle, and it says, "Good morning from Notre Dame Stadium. There's a snowman up in the corner of the end zone, snow coming down, field covered in snow." Some of the responses are a little bit surprising. Like Patrick McCutcheon responds, says, "This will be awful TV and executives know it." Now, McElroy is on the call, so maybe that was the reference there. I'm not real sure. But I see some other people that are excited about this. Are there people that are really down on this? Because, like, when was the last time an NFL game had conditions like this and we said, "Oh, why is it in Pittsburgh? It's going to be terrible." Like Pittsburgh and Cleveland a couple weeks ago. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, what? This is going to be great television.
I don't know if I have the metrics to support it, but I would anticipate anytime there is a snow or unusual, surroundings, I would say that benefits television audience. So I'm sure the expert on Twitter is dialed in, but I think he's probably wrong.
Well, yeah, I think that the reason that I went there is just that there are people who are saying that this isn't going to be compelling TV just because of the weather, maybe.
Or because of the teams involved. I wonder who he cheers for.
Well, you can't say that because this is one of the most iconic brands in college football. So I don't really think it's not. Maybe from the Indiana side I could see people saying that, but
maybe that's the way that person feels. Maybe he doesn't like the Irish. I don't know. I
could be
to it,
but I wanted to, like, John, you think this is going to be awesome, right?
Yes. Maybe this person hates Frosty and snowmen.
That's possible. That's fair.
If he's from the Caribbean,
always
or
something
something
you need to consider.
If he's from the Caribbean or somewhere around the equator.
Maybe he's just like 2011 Greg McElroy, and he's got multiple buttons down on the shirt.
Oh, correct,
just
right.
Living the free life.
How am I supposed to rock these frosted tips and low button shirts in this weather? How dare you, Notre Dame?
Not going to work. All right, I don't know. It was a little surprising to me that people look at this and are not pumped about it. It gets me more pumped about this. Some news around college football quickly. Georgia, Pete Thamel reporting yesterday, preparing without Carson Beck, at least for the Sugar Bowl, and it looks like maybe beyond. Greg and I talked about this earlier in the week. I don't think that's a big surprise to us, but made a little bit official yesterday. Pete Nakos reporting that Georgia is the favorite right now for Dane Key, Kentucky wide receiver. Ton of talent, ton of ability. There are drop issues. And what we saw in the SEC championship game, that might be a little bit concerning for that group. Also, Greg, I wanted to get to this one quickly. USC linebacker Mate Tagoai is taking part of his NIL deal in Bitcoin. Are you a fan of this?
Not at this price point.
For who?
It's a good deal for USC, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't usually. I've always thought that buying high is not a great idea. Doesn't mean it won't go up at some point, but in the event in which it continues to dip, like it has, it's down $13,000 since the all-time high. Not sure I'd recommend taking it in that form right now.
Yeah. A couple of other transfer portal notes quickly that I'll just get to. Some of these quarterbacks, so I want to get G-Mac's thoughts on it because he's going to have to hop off and get up a couple of times this morning and then obviously get ready for his game tonight. Oklahoma gets a commitment from Arkansas wide receiver Isaiah Satanga, 37 catches, 491 yards. Also, Western Kentucky offensive lineman Derek Simmons. Western Carolina, Haven't seen the tape on Derek. I'll try to get to that this weekend. Memphis, Greg, gets Nevada quarterback Brendan Lewis, 6'2", 207, 6,900 yards, 43 touchdowns in his career. Good get for Memphis in Ryan Silverfield's system.
I really don't know a lot about what they're going to look like now that they have lost the quarterback. The only quarterback I feel like I've ever seen play for Memphis. Are they going to?
I feel like Hennigan's been there for a while. Yeah.
I mean, golly. I mean, this is an offense that traditionally will adjust to its personnel. So I think it's probably a good get, but it also is a little bit dependent on how you kind of forecast the offense adapting to whoever ultimately ends up being the quarterback.
North Carolina gets Purdue quarterback Ryan Brown. They also get Alabama offensive lineman Miles McVay. So I don't know if we have a great idea of what Bill Belichick's offense is going to look like, but Broom, obviously a guy that has some experience.
Yeah. And like I said, I have no idea what to expect there at all. Literally no idea what to expect. So it's almost impossible at North Carolina to get any sense of what they're going to be. I think I have a decent understanding of what they'll be defensively. I just don't know what they'll be offensively.
Vanderbilt gets a commitment from FAU true freshman safety C.J. Hurd, 82 tackles this year. Purdue, Greg, gets a commitment from Arkansas quarterback Malachi Singleton. We've seen a little bit of him over his career. He's got
good athlete.
A ton of ability. Yeah, good athleticism, big frame. But once again, Barry Odom kind of starting over there in Purdue. If he's going to run something similar to what he ran at UNLV, he won't have the same offensive coordinator in Brendan Marion. But Singleton would be a good fit if it's something close to that.
Yeah, I think that's a big question. Is Singleton, are they going to be more Hudson Card throwing it in that style of offense, true traditional air raid, or are they going to be moving more towards, the go-go offense that they ran at UNLV? I don't know the answer to that, but something would tell me they're probably going to lean towards running it a little bit more with the quarterback, given Barry's history. So I think they'll probably utilize quarterback run. Maybe they don't want to do that with Hudson Card, so they'll do it with Singleton.
Missouri gets a commitment from Virginia Tech safety Mose Phillips, 6'2", 195, 65 tackles this year. So Missouri having a pretty good portal week and a half, 2 weeks. LSU's A.J. Swan, backup quarterback, is in the portal. He's been at Vanderbilt and at LSU. Yep, one more time. Gonna give it another go. Mississippi State gets a commitment from Tennessee linebacker Jalen Smith. Limited playing time, 6'2", 225. Clemson, sound the alarm again for Clemson.
They're back.
Purdue defensive end Will Helt has committed to the Tigers.
Wow.
That's two portal gets this offseason, not
6'6",
originally
265.
There you go. I mean, this is I feel like big news as Dabo is dipping into a whole new world. Ole Miss gets a commitment from Marshall linebacker Jaden Yates, also defensive back A.J. Brown in the portal for Ole Miss. And USC gets a commitment from Kentucky defensive tackle Keyshawn Silver. Malik Murphy going to go. Yeah, you and I both like Keyshawn Silver, so I think that's a pretty good get for USC.
That's a good pickup for SC.
Malik Murphy to Oregon State, Greg? This feels like a weird one. Yeah.
Intentionally?
I think so. Yeah.
I think he might have underestimated what his market was going to be.
I think there may have been a little bit of I got questions about how much of that was his decision to get out of Duke.
Really?
I'm beginning to hear some things that it might not have been 100% his call. And finally, Florida gets UCLA wide receiver J. Michael Sturdivant, 1,600 plus yards, 13 touchdowns in 3 years. And this is the one we need your feedback on, Greg. This is why you're here.
Please.
You are the expert on this topic.
This is it.
Kentucky gets a commitment from former Texas A&M, former Auburn, former Incarnate Word quarterback Zach Calzada.
He's going to be teaming up potentially with Kendrick Law. Didn't Kentucky just take another quarterback?
I think that one fell apart. I forgot who they were in the mix for.
Was it Malik?
I think it might have been Malik Murphy.
They were talking to him, and I think something happened there. It didn't. That may be where your thought process is coming to reality there, where he was maybe asking for a little bit more than some people thought.
Mm-hmm. But you know what's funny is this relates to Alabama and some other teams or whatnot. Like if you look at Alabama, let's just use them since we haven't really talked about them that much today. You look at the places that some of their players have departed. One's going to Colorado. One's going to Kentucky. You do have Damon Payne, who's going to Michigan. That's obviously a big program, big brand. Devontae Smith's going to Notre Dame. But you have Kobe Prentice going to Baylor. You got Keanu Coke going to Vandy. You got Jaleel Hurley going to Kansas. Boston College is getting Dylan Lonergan. Miles McVay going to North Carolina. Like all these people freaking out about where these guys are going to go. How many guys is Georgia going after that were on Alabama's team? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you need to take into account. It further proves, last year's roster, maybe not as good as people think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think that's something worth acknowledging quickly there. Then on the other side of the state with Auburn, I think they've done a really good job so far with what they've been able to bring in. I got to do some more due diligence on Horatio Fields, full disclosure. But the Mason Murphy, I've heard decent things about him. They go and get a little more length at corner when the kid that they got from Miami, Ohio. That's helpful. Jackson Arnold's obviously an immediate upgrade. So I think there's some momentum going on right there. And I like some of the guys they've targeted with the length because they've needed length on both sides of the ball the last couple weeks moving forward.
Well, it sounds like Singleton they're in good shape for. Some people believe it was supposed to be done already. We'll see where that thing goes. But I wanted to get your thoughts, too, because we missed you yesterday on the corner that Alabama got from Utah and kind of your thoughts there because we know the secondary numbers, especially with Malachi Moore missing the bowl game, a little bit down right at the moment. But Cameron Calhoun, 6'1", 177, going to play for Alabama next fall. What does that one look like?
I think he's a physical corner. I think he could probably play inside if you wanted him to. But the thing to me is a little bit more about mentality. Like if I'm going to the portal, I want to bring guys in from certain places. There's a few places that are just off limits for me. Like I don't know if I want a guy from there. I don't know if I want a guy from there. I'll tell you what though, I'll take a guy from Utah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're usually cut from the right cloth at Utah, it seems like. Toughness, physicality, accountability, just a lot of positive traits with the guys that I've interacted with from Utah over the years. So I think it's a good get just based exclusively without diving too deep into the tape and how he fits from a personnel standpoint because we don't know what's going to be back and what's not. Just knowing the place he's coming from should give you optimism about the type of player he might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point about just culture and personality of certain places. You got to go to get up, go do some TV. We'll catch up with you in a couple segments.
I'll be back in 7 minutes.
We'll see. All right, timer is set. So there you go. McElroy going to do television. We have a lot more to get to on the show across the course of the show today. Just mentioned a lot through the portal, a lot happening there. Alabama, Auburn, both been busy in the portal this season. And then any new ones that come down, commitments here during the show, we'll keep you updated on those. And then three-man front, we'll have more on it throughout the course of their show today. More college football previews coming up after this. We've got the Rubik's Cubic later in the show. We'll deliver that to you at 9 o'clock. And we'll get to our Super Sofa game of the week. That one will be interesting today. Usually I feel like it's one game and we all know where it's going to go. I mean, even if you went outside college football, there's a couple specifically for me that could trump those, probably not over a college football playoff game, but there are some good ones just about everywhere this weekend. So we'll get to all of those, tell you about those, and have a lot more coming up. Tell you about the Gusty Goulas Group, though, first. If you're looking for a new home in central Alabama, it's got to be the Gusty Goulas Group. What you need to do today is call 205-542-1996 or visit gustygoulasgroup.com. Button at the top of the page, you can click that with very little information, find out the value of your home. Gusty Goulas Group wants to help with that, wants to get you into a new home, maybe the home of your dreams, and get top dollar for your current home that you're in. Brokered by eXp Realty, they can do that. Serving over 3,000 home buyers and sellers, they know the inventory coming available. So call the Gusty Goulas Group today, 205-542-1996. Visit gustygoulasgroup.com and start packing. All right, we will come back and begin to discuss some of the other college football playoff games coming up this weekend right after this on Jocks 94.5. All right, Friday, December 20th, 8:17 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. What are you most looking forward to this weekend? What's going to be coolest? What's going to be best about this 12-team playoff? I understand that a lot of our teams aren't in it. A lot of our teams maybe aren't going to be there in action, and that's a little bit frustrating. But still, we have to appreciate what this is historically, in my opinion. Tonight, you get Indiana, Notre Dame. Tomorrow, you get more college football playoff action. And not just the FBS kind, 11 a.m. TNT, SMU and Penn State. Keep in mind now, this is not the NBA playoffs. You're going to have to find TNT to watch SMU and Penn State and to watch Clemson and Texas later in that afternoon. But also at 11 a.m. on ABC, you're going to get South Dakota State at North Dakota State from the Fargo Dome. Both those teams 12-2. That'll be a damn good football game really in the FCS semifinals. Then, speaking of snow games, 11-2 South Dakota's at 14-0 Montana State in the FCS semifinals on the other side of the bracket. That's at Bobcat Stadium in Bozeman. 2:30 kick. Go back to TNT. Clemson, Texas will be there. And then on ABC in the nightcap, Tennessee at Ohio State. I just want to know, like, what are people looking for? What are people excited about as far as the first weekend of this 12-team college football playoff? Reed is on the Buyers Right hotline, 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJEX to get in. Reed, what are your thoughts on this coming up weekend?
I'm excited for the inaugural football playoff, Cole, but my two questions, one primarily directed towards you. I'm not for certain what it's called, but like the SEC film room game that you did for the SEC championship on the field. Curious with the ratings that did, and I saw what you posted about it, why we're not doing those for this, because I think a lot of people really enjoy that, and especially if you look at the success of the Manning cast and those types of shows. But more specifically from your point of view, just how difficult is that? Because you watch the Manning cast, and Peyton and Eli both have multiple screens up, but you guys are down there on the field and having to digest that so quickly and then put out an informed opinion on what just happened that the average viewer doesn't have time to digest that. So that's question one. And question two would be more towards just yours and Greg's philosophy as a whole. I know Greg's calling Notre Dame and Indiana, and the take all week has been, well, Greg can't make a selection on that because he's calling the game. I guess and I know Herb Street does the same thing on game days from that perspective, but I think from a fan's perspective, I don't think just because you give an informed opinion of who you want to win or who you think is going to win, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be biased on your call or think that's going to influence how you talk on the broadcast. Because in my opinion, I would think you guys just want a good game no matter what, but you can still think that Notre Dame or Indiana is the better team and they should win because of X, Y, Z. So I guess just the first question being directed towards you and the second one, just a broader moral high ground on why that is the case.
Man, that's a great call. I appreciate it, Reed. I'll start with the second question first, and Greg can give his opinion on it when he bounces back on here in a few minutes. But I think the reason that it began to happen, most likely with Herb Street on game day, is just it's a preemptive strike to avoid backlash and BS. I'm with you. I don't think it changes anything. And you're right. One of the secrets of broadcasting that I don't think a lot of people realize or know is the only thing you really want is a competitive game. That's it. Nobody wants to be at a 45-0 game at the half. Nobody wants to talk about a 4-score game late third, early fourth quarter, because that's where you got to dig into your bag and start telling stories and talk about different things outside of the actual football, because it's not competitive anymore, and that part's not as compelling. We all just want competitive games. That's it. I don't think if I got on here and told you that I think Indiana's going to beat Notre Dame and I was on the call for that game, it would change anything about the way that I called it. I'm literally just going to share with you what I see. That's it. I think Greg's the same way. I think most play-by-play color analysts are exactly the same way. They just want to share with you what they're seeing and why they think it's happening the way that it is. At least that's how I've sort of tried to live my life according to that. As far as the MegaCast film room, I have no responsibility for any of that in the playoff. I will not be on TV during the playoffs. I will do radio for a second round game. I don't think PR's put that out yet, so I'm going to try to avoid that, getting in trouble there. I do know McAfee and his crew are doing the game in Columbus, right?
Yes.
For MegaCast.
Yeah.
So McAfee and his guys will do a field pass for Tennessee at Ohio State. For Indiana Notre Dame, you're going to get the main telecast, Command Center, Skycast, Spanish broadcast, national radio broadcast, and the marching band performance will be streamed live on ESPN Plus. Tennessee, Ohio State, main telecast, field pass with the McAfee show. Then you'll get a Command Center. SEC Network will have Skycast, Spanish broadcast, national radio, marching band, ESPN Plus, whatever. But keep in mind, the other two are on TNT, so I don't think you get the mega cast there. You don't get all the extra stuff.
Yeah, that would feel a little
So
unfair.
that kind of, I think that kind of killed the field pass options for those games. There will not be one tonight. And then McAfee and his guys will do tomorrow night. And I don't know. I mean, I think that'll be very similar for the next few rounds. So I have no other information on what else is going to take place after this round. But I will do radio for a second round game. So that's what you'll have. No television for me in the college football playoffs. So, but either way, going to be awesome, going to be polarizing, going to be fun, and just want to know what people are looking most forward to. I think the anticipation has been so big for so long that now some people are kind of that point where, all right, I just need to see it. Is it going to feel different? Is it going to look different? Is it going to sound different? Is your anticipation about where you thought it would be for this, John, or is it maybe a little bit less for whatever reason?
It feels slightly less, and maybe that's because I've been preoccupied with Christmas and various other things. It feels like also that being said now, the hype is definitely being ramped up now. Maybe because it's literally game day. But it felt like leading up to the game, like I saw some things, but it didn't feel like, oh, hey, it's going to be here and like before we know it. And maybe because some of that is we're just not used to having not only playoff, but playing it on a Friday night like this. It does feel a little odd.
And I wonder, too, if the quick turnaround is not allowing our brains to be as in tune with it as we normally would. Now, we love having more games, but we're also used to having a month off.
Right.
And then we start this thing. So we can go do our Christmas and do all that other stuff.
Yes.
Oh,
Then
there's the
come back,
Gasparilla Bowl. Oh, here comes the Cheez-It Bowl. Like, Scooter's Coffee Bowl. The Diamond Almonds Frisco, whatever the hell. Blue Bonnet Bowl's up tonight. Yeah, great. We can watch a little bit of that, but you don't really have to get dialed in until around New Year's. Now, it's like, no. This is the real thing.
Yes.
Even though the season just ended, we're coming off 1 week from Army-Navy. Now, this is it. And I just don't know if our brains are wired for that yet.
Heck, there were bowl games the week of Army-Navy.
Yeah.
And that's something that feels new, too. Usually, it had just been Army-Navy. And I think a couple of years there were rollover games that got postponed or played. Okay, fine, those were one-off. So we usually have that kind of break that it's not really an off-season, but somewhat of a time. But now this is the new normal, and eventually, we'll probably start feeling used to it. It's just we know what's coming, we just didn't realize it. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, because like tomorrow, with the playoffs, whatever going, we're doing Christmas at the lady's mother's house, and it's one of those like, oh, I got nothing to do during the day, and I realized yesterday I was like, oh wait, I got games to watch. Oops, I almost committed to some other things. That could have been disastrous.
I'm just excited to see him on campus. I mean, this video that Golick Jr. just shared a few minutes ago, there are people, there's lines, traffic of lines waiting to get on campus now, right now. It's just, I think being on campus is going to be special. And that makes it more weird to me what we heard James Franklin doing the other day and what we heard Steve Sarkisian do it the other day, like begging these fans to show up and be loud, begging these fans to show up and be intense. How is there any doubt that that's going to be a real thing? Maybe the ticket allotment. I don't know. And Ohio State's got this whole scare that Tennessee's going to have 50,000 in there, which I don't doubt that Vol Nation's doing their best to get in there. And it doesn't look like the ticket prices are beyond outrageous. So I think you'll probably see more orange than you'll see visiting colors in these other venues. I mean, SMU just has a smaller fan base, alumni base. So that's going to be a little surprising if they were to go infiltrate. But I just think that having it on campus is the part that I'm looking forward to the most. And maybe for whatever reason, it won't be the same as regular season home games, Greg, but I just don't know why some of these coaches have any trepidation that this is not going to be a special feel and not going to be just an unbelievable environment.
You can be frustrated with the most recent performance of your team, a la Ohio State fans. I don't think anyone wants I don't think anybody wants to lose to your rival, right? No one's ever going to suggest that that's okay. Get that no one ever wants to miss out on an opportunity to play in a Big Ten championship. All the other stuff that happened as a result of the loss to Michigan. You can be disgruntled. All that's fair. But when push comes to shove, and you're sitting there and you're getting ready to play for a chance to advance in the first ever 12-team playoff, you really think you're going to sit there and cross your arms in the stands and say, I'm not rooting for Ryan Day anymore. Like, no way you're going to do that, right? Like, at some point, your fandom outweighs your frustration, and your unwavering loyalty to your university outweighs the short-term disappointment of losing your fourth game in a row to Michigan. Am I wrong there, or am I just overanalyzing this?
I think the whole, and I don't know where it is, and maybe we should have had somebody on from Columbus this week. If they win, maybe we'll get somebody next week. But just, I went on Josh's show last night, and he wanted to talk about this for a while. And this whole, like, Ryan Day is going to get fired if he loses this first-round game, or can he ever crawl back out of the doldrums that these fans have put him in? You know, this corner of the room that they've placed Ryan Day in, he'll never be able to escape. Have we forgotten all the good things that he's done? Listen, you want to beat your rival. I get it, but you're in the college football playoff. And I'm with you, Greg. I feel like that there's a portion of this fan base that is missing out on that excitement because they got their feelings hurt by Michigan. And again, nobody wants that. Like, nobody wants their girlfriend to dump them, but it's like when your buddy tells you that the other super attractive girl at school wants you to ask her on a date, like, you don't just say, man, because there's no reason to be Frankenstein over that. That's the noise that Frankenstein makes in the book that my kids love.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay.
That sounds like a grandpa getting out of Frankenstein, meaning like
Frankenstein doesn't like to wait in lines at the amusement park.
That sounds a bit like the penguin.
Frankenstein doesn't like popsicles when it's hot outside because they melt. That's how Frankenstein sounds when we read the book. So
I like that one.
I don't know why you're being Frankenstein when you're in the damn playoff. Like, what are we doing?
Like I said, you can be frustrated with the momentary disappointment that is losing to your rival, but they don't hang banners for beating your rival. I'm not saying it's not part of the whole, appreciation. Like, when I walked in Notre Dame's indoor facility yesterday, I didn't look and see the banners of, beat USC and then listing off all the years. Okay, the Golden Shillelagh. These are the years we won the Golden Shillelagh. Like, no, you don't have that. Now. Like, okay, I'm not saying you don't remember the outcomes, and I'm not saying that games aren't weighted heavier. Rivalry games are the most important thing we have as a sport. Like, I still think it is the most important. Like, playing for only one team wins a championship, but there's 134 that play their rival every year. So the rivalry game will always matter most. I get it. But you really think, you know what was on the side of the Notre Dame indoor facility? Cotton Bowl appearances, college football playoff appearances, like in the years listed. When I walk into Coleman Coliseum and I look up in the rafters, I see Sweet 16 appearances. We haven't been to a game this year, but I will see a Final Four banner. Same thing for when you go to the jungle at Auburn. You see the years where they've made tournament runs, SEC titles, SEC tournament champions. Like, championships is ultimately what we are all trying to play for. And Ohio State has a chance to do that. So the fact that you lost to Michigan, yeah, it's a bummer. It stinks. I hate it for you. But come on. I'm so mad. I can't support this program anymore because Ryan Day doesn't beat Michigan enough. Stop. Like, the second toe meets leather, they're going to be ready to roll. That place will be a tough and hostile place for Tennessee to go into, and I think they'll play well.
Do you think Alabama fans are sad of 2017? They lost to their rival. They lost to Auburn. But they also
how many people remember that? Because last time I checked, on the Get Up 10 seconds ago, Greeny brought up Tua Tagovailoa coming off the bench and winning a national championship. Same year. I'm not sure anybody cares. Like,
are you forecasting to a potential backup quarterback maybe having a expanded role in this playoff? We have an interesting take on one of those that we will let you hear on the other side of the break. First, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Bromberg's is great. I've been going to Bromberg's for years. Have always had a terrific experience. Feel like they go the extra mile to make sure I get what I'm looking for. It's when you buy things at Bromberg's, you're buying things that could last multiple generations. I mean, these are foundational pieces of what we care about, and they're really, really special. And it's nice to know that I'm doing it with people I really trust and love and enjoy. So go into Bromberg's, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You'll see them in one of their 2 locations, Mountain Brook Village and the Summit. You can also always shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, when we come back, is there one of the quarterbacks in this college football playoff on the move after this season and not to the NFL? We'll discuss it right after this on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, 8:36 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5, Friday, December 20th. And there are some interesting comments coming out from Mel Kiper, G-Mac, somebody who we trust. We talk about the draft, obviously does his homework, knows how things operate. And it's about Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. This is what got my attention when you started talking about backup quarterbacks. Kiper in a recent podcast said Arch Manning is going to be the quarterback at Texas next year. So if you want to play college football, you probably have to move on somewhere. This is in reference to Quinn Ewers, though. He said, I would not come out unless I really played phenomenal football in these playoff games and came into this draft process with tremendous momentum. I don't want to become a second or third round pick. How much reality is in what he's saying right there?
Well, first of all, I don't think being a second, third round pick is the worst thing in the world.
I could think of worse things, no doubt.
But here's my thing. Next year's quarterback class, in all likelihood, and we don't necessarily know what the pecking order is going to be, next year's quarterback class is in all likelihood going to be better than this year's quarterback class. This is about as underwhelming a quarterback class as there's been in quite some time. Would you not agree?
Yeah, it's not. It's not loaded. No, for sure.
I mean, there might be guys that super overachieve. Maybe Shador becomes amazing. I don't know these things. I just feel like more often than not, there's 3 or 4 that are big time. Like last year, there were 4 or 5 guys that were big time prospects, and now it's like this year's pretty underwhelming. Like you're gonna have a lot of guys drafting on upside, and you're probably gonna have a lot of busts in this group. Let's just call it what it is. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see how it all goes, but I wouldn't come back because if you're a second or third rounder in this year's class, you might be a third and fourth rounder in next year's class, depending on who ends up elevating and who ends up becoming a guy.
Hold on. They just asked you about this on Get Up, and you made a Mean Girls reference?
Yes.
Share?
Arch Manning. So many different questions about Arch Manning, which I'm all for. And by the way, I think he's going to be a great player. I hope he's like his uncles. That'd be amazing. So what I said is I have a younger sister, and she used to watch the movie Mean Girls all the time. And in that movie, one of the characters is trying to make the word fetch become super cool. And she goes on to say, let's stop trying to make fetch happen. Well, we as media need to stop trying to make arch happen. Like, it's going to happen. It will. At some point, it will happen. It'll be fine. But we need to stop trying to put the cart before the horse and making him into an elite player right now. He's a situational player. And that's okay. But that's where he's at in his development.
All right. So, Greg McElroy with the Mean Girls reference of the morning.
Okay.
You good with that, John?
Makes sense. Gretchen was her name. That was the character you were thinking of.
Gretchen Wiener?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know so.
It's after 8. All right, it's acceptable. Honestly, of the 3, that's probably the least surprising that Greg knew it, but spot on. I'll give it to him.
I mean, Mean Girls.
It's also a really good movie.
Mean Girls had its time.
It did. Yes, correct.
I'm not saying it's not good.
Movie.
Not saying it's not good now. It is, but it had its time.
No, it's
for
a
lot of
guilty
things.
pleasure movie. Like it's one that you don't want to admit to the boys that you like.
No,
but you like
I'm actually fine with it.
He just kind of did, but
100% fine with it.
Same here.
I feel like folks know that was a long time ago.
Right. Legally Blonde. That's a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's I
haven't seen that movie, and I could never make a Legally Blonde reference. I have not seen that movie in so long. I couldn't even begin to start.
Like it's hard.
Don't think I've seen it start to finish, actually. But either way. All right. I want to tell you about our friends at Wayne's quickly. They'll get your yard in shape. They can get that ready for spring when it comes back around. Have it green, lush, weed-free, barefoot good. Also, the mosquitoes in the springtime. You know about that. But now you've got pest control, not just the termites, but rodent control. If you've got wildlife in your home, in your attic, you need to call our friends at Wayne's or go visit waynes.com. Call Wayne's now and let them know if you've got maybe the raccoon or the possum in the garage, if you've got the birds that are maybe coming into the attic, squirrels in the attic. Wayne's can help. They've got wildlife removal and prevention services now at Wayne's. 866-WAYNES-1 or call waynes.com, and Wayne's can get you taken care of. You don't want to have to deal with the varmints in the crawl space or up in the attic or in the garage. Let Wayne's help you out with that. They'll get them out, and they'll make sure they don't come back. Just another service that our friends at Wayne's offers you each and every day. 866-WAYNES-1 or call waynes.com. All right, we'll get to a break. Come back. A little bit more on some of these other playoff games that we haven't hit just yet. Need to go into Texas and Clemson. We mentioned the quarterback situation, but haven't really had a lot of details on which direction we think this game goes. We'll begin that right after this on Jocks 94.5. Clemson at Texas in the college football playoff. Spent a little bit of time on that one. Greg back doing Get Up Again. Is there a movie reference he makes this time around?
He feels like he might go Transformers.
Monsters, Inc.?
Well, maybe.
The Incredibles?
Go all over the gambit?
Ashton Genty not playing this weekend. Let's feel like if it's a Clemson, Texas, we already made a reference for that game.
Right.
Tennessee, Ohio State. If they ask him about that one, maybe he makes a he thinks it sounds like he thinks Ohio State's going to win big.
Yeah.
So maybe he gets a what would his reference be for that one?
Maybe John Wick getting revenge.
What's the movie where Morgan Freeman's the president and the wave comes in?
Deep Impact?
Yeah, maybe he makes a Deep Impact reference there with Ohio State crushing Tennessee.
He feels more like an Armageddon guy than Deep Impact.
Definitely more of an Armageddon
Yeah.
guy. You got to be into the natural disasters to like Deep Impact.
Oh, correct.
That's
right.
got to be for you, and I'm for it. So maybe SMU at Penn State. That's a maybe he goes away from his game and makes the Rudy analogy for that game, and
Ooh.
SMU would be Rudy, not Indiana.
No, yeah, that would be spot on. Rudy gets Rudied.
Okay, we'll see if he decides to go that direction. Clemson, Texas is, I think, intriguing in a couple ways. How much can Cade Klubnik really get? He's been great this year. He's one of the few quarterbacks that has had that turnover DNA inside of it and been able to rewire a little bit of it. Just 5 interceptions this year to 33 touchdowns. I am concerned about what kind of time he'll have. I am concerned about some of the slower developing plays that Clemson has. They have a lot of read plays in their offense, and that takes time to develop. Well, if you have a front that can penetrate inside, can athletically be able to circumvent your blocks on the edge, that's going to be a problem. Now, maybe they can do some different things with his legs. I do think he runs better than people believe. 458 rushing yards this year, 7 rushing touchdowns, averaging over 4 yards a carry. He's got a little bit of juice when he gets north and south. They're not going to live there. That's not what they're going to make a living on. But I do think it could be something that Clemson looks to if Texas is not respecting it or playing it a certain way. Okay, so you steal a few yards that way. But where are the drives going to be continued series after series for the Clemson offense? I think it's got to be quick game. And if you get the one-on-ones, you got to take them. You got to take those shots down the field. And I think time could be a little bit concerning, but you max up that protection and you try to be able to find it to get the ball down the field. If they can find some space for slants, outs, quicker throws, maybe screen game gets going, I think that's where Clemson's got to make their hay in this game. They're not going to run the football traditionally. It's not going to be there. And even if you get a little bit on quarterback runs and they make that adjustment with a Colin Simmons or a Trey Moore or a BJ Hill, I don't think that they're going to be able to continuously go there. So on the flip side of that, I think the Clemson defensive line can disrupt. I think they can be problematic. That's why one of the, if you can find it, I think Burt Auburn's field goal total for this game is 1.5. Go play the over on that, because Texas has struggled in the red zone recently, just as it is. Now you're going to play against an aggressive group of linebackers and a defensive line that can disrupt. Well, that removes a little bit of the run game. And Sark has actually been, in my opinion, low percentage in his play calling in the red zone specifically. Mainly in the deep red zone also. You go back to, we were on the call for the Vanderbilt game. They get down inside the 5, and it's out route, fade, field goal. Hand the ball off. And I think they get away from that a little bit the closer they get to the end zone. They did it against Georgia a little bit. I mean, throwing these fades and corner routes, and you've got a dynamic running back who on the perimeter can be dangerous. And I don't think Clemson tackles as well in the open field as Georgia does, but these linebackers get to the ball in a hurry. Now you can get them out of their spots too, because they'll get sucked up in the RPO game, and all of a sudden there's nobody to replace over the top. That can be an issue, but Burt Auburn over. Take that. I don't know where it is where you look, but it's one that I would pay attention to, because I do think Texas will settle for field goals in this game, because Clemson's defensive line can cause some problems and do some different things. But they're also a little bit too aggressive at times, specifically out on the edges, where I think those off-tackle runs that were big against A&M and have been big against some other teams, Texas could get those going. I think Gunnar Helm, we talked about all the tight ends in this playoff are going to have big games. He's going to help with chips and then quick throws, I think, being a little bit of an outlet guy. And because some of those linebackers do get tied up and mixed up inside, he could be somebody out in the flat quickly that has a big game for the Texas Longhorns. I think Texas will continue to score. I just don't think that it's always going to be touchdowns, And I think Clemson, an explosive play here and there, but I don't see them continuing drives in this game. I don't see them marching up and down the field on this Texas defense. The defensive line's been too stout, been too ridiculous. The linebackers are too active. Now, Jahdae Barron's been great back at corner. Taft's been great at safety. Makuba a little banged up, but I think he's going to be fine for this one. I just don't think that you're going to find consistent drives either on the ground or through the air. Klubnik will get a couple with his legs. They'll complete a ball or two down the field, but it's just not going to be consistent. I think Texas comfortable, and that's the direction I'm going. Do you think Texas covers in this game, John?
Yeah. This game has the potential, I think, to be the most lopsided.
12 points feels like a lot in a college football playoff game. I get it, but it's at home. Weather going to be perfect. That's where you feel like Texas just goes out and rolls. So I like the Horns in that one, and I do think that they cover. SMU at Penn State. Remember, TNT. It's not the NBA playoffs. They might know drama, but now they know college football.
Or Max, if you want to get the most out of your subscription.
What is the most popular rerun on TNT right now that people go to for?
Probably Inside the NBA. But of actual programming, I don't know how much original programming they have now besides games. I feel like it's that and games and movies.
Charmed, Supernatural, Good Behavior, NCIS New Orleans, The Alienist.
I remember that show.
Does he work on the Rubik's Cube?
I would hope so. Maybe he's over in New Jersey right now.
Rich and Shameless, Will. I'm just giving you TNT shows. Shack Life? Haven't seen the tape.
I'll be happy. I'm sure it's enthralling.
AEW.
Okay.
Shatterbox, The Inside Story, Collision. None?
Okay. I think I stand by my statements.
Maybe
they sunk all their money into AEW because I don't know outside of the Rich and Shameless, which I think one of them had Hulk Hogan. I was like, all right, I might watch that one, and then I fell asleep.
All right. Charmed.
Like Mean Girls.
You don't go to check that out.
Had its place back in the day, but don't need it now.
Cold Case.
I'm not 50 and old.
Supernatural.
No.
What?
I feel like that's shifted over to podcast now.
Good
Cold
Behavior.
Case. Don't even know what that is, and that's saying something from me.
How do you not know what it is?
What is it?
Letty Raines is a thief and a con artist who's always one bad decision from implosion, John.
Okay.
She's fresh out of prison. She's
right.
attempting to stay afloat. But when she overhears a hitman being hired to kill a man's wife, she sets out to derail that job, sending her on a wild collision course with the killer.
Oh, Collision Course. That's another. Is that the show?
Win. Sign me up.
Oh.
I need Laney fresh out of prison trying to stop a hit.
Let's see how long that show lasted.
It's a TNT original, John. I don't know why you're trying to put it down. There's also The Alienist and The Alienist Angel of Darkness. This feels like a lot, by the way.
Good Behavior lasted 2 seasons, ended 2018. So it's not really recent.
Well, many of our listeners who enjoy What the Puck will know right where it is because the NHL is on TNT's on Wednesdays.
Right. Sports, yes.
You got that. There it is.
They realize all they need is sports and maybe some wrestling.
Some people consider it a sport.
Okay. More so than
athletic
NASCAR?
competition.
More so than NASCAR?
A lot more than NASCAR.
Okay, all right. More so than golf?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're trying to win the crowd over. I mean, it's competition. SMU at Penn State, another one we'll spend some time on in the next hour. But as I said with Stanford Steve earlier this morning, I think it's a bad matchup for SMU. SMU super active on the edges, a little bit lighter on the edges, and I think that could be a bit of a problem, specifically with the run scheme that Penn State employs. A lot of gap scheme, a lot of pin and pull. You're going to get a lot of counter. You're going to pull the tight ends around. And some of the edges for SMU, I think, are just a little bit too, I guess they freelance a little bit, try to play under blocks, try to win with athleticism instead of just kind of play and contain the way that they need to, playing blocks the way that they need to. I think specifically, like when Cameron Robinson, number 15's in the game, Robertson, love him as a pass rusher, but playing the run, I think he can get him in trouble. Elijah Roberts, a little bit of the same thing. I think out there on the edges, Greg, that SMU defense has to be very careful with just the style of runs that Penn State's going to offer up.
I kind of thought the same thing when they played against Clemson, though. I think their run defense does a pretty good job of, and honestly, the linebackers, they have a couple of racers at the second level. I agree, though. There's a couple of edge guys that I would run right at. They want to do all the flashy stuff. They want to rush the passer. And they get in third and longs. That's a really good spot for SMU to be. They have twitch on the edges. I think Harrison Hunt, 81 on the inside's a handful. But I think this is going to be a passing game for Penn State. I see it like swing routes, flat routes, stuff just that gets the ball out of Drew Aller's hands quickly, and then you get Singleton and Katrin Allen working against these DBs because these DBs don't want to be crazy physical. Like, they don't want to do it. That's not who they are. So I don't love the matchup for SMU. I think they're going to move the football. They're going to score. I feel pretty confident about that. I just don't think they're going to be able to stop Penn State with their size-speed ratio and how often they're going to get their guys to the edge.
I mean, listen, you don't have to tell me about the racers that they're going to have on the field when yesterday we drafted our top 3 players on these teams, and Kobe Wilson, linebacker for SMU, was he's number 3 for me off the board. So he is he's fun to watch. And they are super active, but similar to Indiana, they move a lot. And I just wonder with how Penn State runs a lot of the power counter stuff, if that's going to get them in trouble. And then to go a little bit +1 as well, if you're not replacing, then that could also be a problem. So I'm just all of the conditions along with the style of play really on both sides. I think the athletic front that Penn State offers up could be an issue for SMU and how they operate on offense because I think they got to get to the perimeter to win this game, and I think Penn State has the ability to negate some of that. So it's not stacking up well for SMU to be able to win this game, and I hate it because people are going to look at it and say, oh, they weren't good, we told you, but it just is a really bad matchup in a lot of ways. We'll discuss it more right after this.